Right. Hey guys, it's Dijon here from Purpose Nation, and this is episode 4 of the Finding Your Purpose podcast. And today I have Rena. Rena, do you mind introducing yourself?
Yeah, my name is Rena Malik. I am a urologist by training and a pelvic surgeon. And I'm also a YouTuber where I make content on bladder health, sexual health, and all sort of urologic conditions to educate the general public.
Thank you. And yeah, guys, like Rena, she has like an amazing story, and just like her channel is really unique. She has a big audience, and yeah, it's gonna be a great episode. So make sure you watch or listen to this episode all the way through, because there's gonna be a lot of golden nuggets. I have like an amazing questions lined up, so it's gonna be a good one. Yep. So yeah, I guess like first of all, like where are you located at, Rena?
Yeah, so I'm currently in Maryland. So I work in Baltimore and a little suburb called Columbia, Maryland.
Mhm.
And I am from originally Buffalo, New York, which is where I was born and raised. I'm a huge Bills fan.
Mhm.
And then went to New York City for medical school at NYU, and then residency in Chicago at University of Chicago, and then to fellowship for female pelvic medicine reconstructive surgery in Dallas, Texas at UT Southwestern.
I love it. So it sounds like you've like just been growing up on the East Coast, you know?
Yep. Trying out all the major cities.
I love it. I love it. And I guess like growing up, like what are your hobbies look like? Like what do you do in your free time? Can you tell me a bit more about that?
Absolutely. So I was really I was born in a first generation Indian. So my parents came from India in 1975, and they were one of the first 4 immigrant families of Indian descent in the whole city of Buffalo, New York, at least that they knew of. And so from there, they brought their entire extended family to Buffalo. They sponsored them all. And so I grew up with a big South Asian influence because they literally had moved from India. So a lot of what I did during my free time centered around that, spending a lot of time with my extended family, going to church called Gurdwara. And then really I got into Indian dancing quite a lot. So I did a North Indian dance called Bhangra, which is what I really enjoyed doing. And when I was in college, started the Bhangra team and started a Bhangra competition, and was really actively involved in that. And then, that was pretty much, what we did for fun.
I love it. And like hats down for you for like getting into dancing. Like that's the one thing. Like I can like play the piano, I can do a lot of stuff, but like dancing, like I'm always jealous. I'm always envious of other people that can just like dance, specifically like dancing from like different traditions. I always find that like really like you have like your like the music and just like the whole atmosphere, the whole package. It's just like
Yeah,
amazing.
it's
I love
amazing.
it.
It's so fun, and it's performing on stage is so different than giving a talk or anything else.
Yeah.
It's just really exhilarating. So super fun, and I'm sure you can if you want to. You just gotta keep trying.
Yeah. I think it's all about like just like being in sync with like the beat, and just
Yeah.
like I don't know. I guess for me, like I get too focused on like what I'm doing with my hands and my feet. I get too self-conscious of that. I have a hard time just like loosening up. But yeah.
Well, practice makes perfect, right?
That's right. Yeah. But I like that. Like you grew up in a, like had lots of family around. It's always nice to have, and just like that support system. And yeah, I like it. So what got you into like what you do now? You did mention like the schools you went to. Like was there something like, do you just take like just went for like I don't know, just like went down like one path and kind of see where it led to, or was it something that inspired you as far as like what
Well,
got into your career path?
so yeah, my mom's a nurse, so I had exposure to healthcare early on. But just like if you know any South Asians, you'll know that when we grow up, we're kind of told you should be a doctor, an engineer, or a lawyer. You should have a stable job, be financially stable, and have something that's kind of a respectable white collar profession. And
Mhm.
so I was kind of I knew that that was what my parents wanted me to do, and I had some interest in it. But I said, you know what, let me really be sure that's what I wanted do. And so I did during college do some internships at other types of jobs, and really just realized that I enjoyed the idea of taking care of patients. Of course, I didn't really know exactly what that entailed, but I liked the idea of being a part of someone's life where they're needing help in an intimate way and getting that privilege to really take care of them. So I went down, kind of went straight through. So I went to college, and then I went into medical school right away, and then straight through to, and so when you become a physician after medical school, you have to do what's called a residency. And so I matched, and you match, you don't get to really pick, you pick the specialty you want to go into, but you essentially apply in that specialty and then you get matched. So you don't get to pick exactly where you go, you get to rank them, and then you go that way. So I went to Chicago for residency after going to medical school in New York. And then from there, I decided to do a fellowship, and that was, and so I guess we'll take it back a little step. So when I was in medical school, you decide what you want to do, right? And how you decide that is you go on rotations. So sometimes people have a preconceived notion. They come into medical school saying, I want to be an orthopedic surgeon, or I want to be this or that. I had no idea. And so during my rotations, I went into surgery. It was one of my first rotations. And I was like, wow, I never expected myself to like surgery. I was like, wow, I actually enjoy this. I like working with my hands. I like the quick fix, like you do something and the patient is fixed. And so I was like, wow, I'm really drawn to this, but I didn't enjoy general surgery like I thought I would. So I looked into then the subspecialties, and there's, if you think of surgical subspecialties, those are like ENT, ear, nose, and throat doctors. There's urologists who take care of the genitourinary tract, so kidneys, bladder, and genitals. And then there's ophthalmology, eyes, and there's orthopedic surgery, which is bones, obviously. And then all the other ones, you do a general surgery residency. So I looked at these subspecialties. I knew I didn't want to do ortho, and I really didn't like eyeballs. So it kind of left me with ENT and urology. And when I decided to go into urology, I met with the chairman. I went to the surgeries, and I was like, wow, this is so exciting. We get to do such a diverse number of things. We can do little procedures in the office. We can do big open surgeries, and we can take care of different kinds of patients, where we can take care of kids, we can take care of women, we can take care of men's sexual health, we can take care of cancer. So it just offered a lot of opportunity. And I think a key, if anyone is in a point where they're trying to figure out what they want to do with their lives, it's also about who you work with. So you want to find your tribe, right? So like for me, I found my tribe. I met urologists and said, wow, these are really great, fun-loving people. I always like to say, how serious can you take yourself when you're dealing with genitals all day? Like you really can't.
Yeah.
And so that's really been super fun for me. And so I matched into urology. And then from there, I really enjoyed reconstructive surgery, like putting things back together. It's a little bit more creative. You have to kind of think about things in a, it's not always a stepwise, like not every patient's the same. You don't treat them all the same. And then you're improving their quality of life. So people who have bladder issues, who are leaking or going to the bathroom too often, people who have, more complicated problems like fistulas or things that they're really causing them a lot of issues, I get to fix those. So I really love it.
I like how you said, I had a conversation with someone, I think it was in the past like year or two, but they said she was in the same situation as well. She's kind of like in healthcare, I forgot what it was specifically, but she said when she went and saw like her first like surgery, just kind of like just like shadowing the doctor. I think that's the term, but like it was so fascinating to her to where she wanted to go into that. So that's interesting how you say how just going to like that first like just like going to your first surgery and being able to experience that, how that really just like opened that new world for you.
Yeah.
And you kind of tapped into it a little bit, but what exactly does urologist do? And I think you're also a pelvic surgeon as well. I think that's what
Right. So all urologists are surgeons, which I think not everyone knows, but we take care of the medical and surgical problems with essentially the plumbing of the urinary tract. So it can be the kidneys, so any kidney cancers, kidney stones, the tubes that drain the kidneys, the bladder. So anything that can go wrong with the bladder cancer, if you get bladder stones, if you're having like bladder leakage or going to the bathroom a lot or waking up a lot at night, we deal with that. And then we can do anything with the genitals. So sexual function for both men and women. We do for women, we also do prolapse. So like when things are kind of falling out and they're not supposed to. And then we do infertility for men. We do pediatric urology. So anything that happens in those systems with kids. And I'm sure I'm missing things because we do so many, but there's just so much that we do. We do robotic surgery. We do surgery with little cameras that go into small holes to like look in the bladder and things like that. And it's really just very satisfying because I think patients are so nervous when they come to us about these problems, but we can really put them at ease and fix their problems. And so I think it's just so great.
I love it. I love it. And with that, did you have at the time, do you have like your were you working under like another doctor or a corporation, or do you have like your own practice?
So in medical now, or
I guess like back then and now, yeah.
yeah. So back in medical school, you're basically a student. So you're still like paying tuition, being a student, but you go on what's called rotations. So you rotate through all like many of the specialties in medicine. So you'll do general medicine, you'll do surgery, you'll do pediatrics, you'll do neurology, you'll do other specialties. And so you OBGYN, so you do all these specialties and you're still a student. So you're learning. And so you rotate under all the, physicians who are in that hospital system. So I was at NYU. So we rotate at the NYU hospital. And then they had other hospitals like Bellevue, which is a public hospital, and the VA hospital, which is the Veterans Hospital. So we'd rotate through all those hospitals, and that's how you learn. And then you go into residency where you're employed as a resident, but you're still a trainee. So then you learn, with a smaller group of urologists. So my residency had like 9 urologists in the main hospital. And then we'd rotate to other hospitals that had another number of, 5 or 6 urologists that we'd rotate with. So you'd rotate with them and you would be kind of an apprenticeship. So you learn with them, and then in fellowship, very similarly, but it's a smaller group of very specialized urologists who teach you in whatever fellowship you go into. So I had 3 mentors there who I worked with every day and, learned with them, like again, an apprenticeship. And now I'm in what's called an attending physician. And so I work in an academic hospital where I train residents, I do surgeries, I teach them, and I also, take care of patients.
I like it. And man, that's why you guys get paid the big bucks,
It's a long time before we get paid anything. So
man, sounds like a whole lot of schooling, lots of just like training, practice, learning. But yeah, like I like it. Like for me, like I'm a marketer, but that sounds like like you found like something that you like generally enjoy, and I'm happy for you. So as you're going through all this, what made you think that, all right, I'm going to start a YouTube channel? What, like, can you walk me through that process?
Yeah, absolutely. So basically the reason I started it is because I'm really interested in health literacy. So I'll go back to kind of where my interest in that started. So when I was a trainee, a resident, I remember we did this beautiful surgery on a patient. Everything went technically perfect. There was no complications with the surgery itself. But after the surgery, she would have to put a catheter in her new bladder, essentially every time she needed to pee, 4 or 6 times a day. And that's how she was supposed to empty her bladder. And so she kept coming back to the hospital and getting admitted to the ICU, which is like a very high level of care. And we kept being like, what's going on? And realized she didn't understand that she had to catheterize now. And so that was a big misstep, that someone somewhere, she didn't get that education right before she underwent this big surgery. And so I realized at that point that
you're good. Oh, are you there?
Did you get all that? I know it froze a little bit.
I think if you can go back, I think back to the IC. Yeah, first for a little bit. Yeah, we're good now. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So the patient kept getting admitted to the ICU, and the ICU was like a higher level of care when someone's really sick. And so we were like, what's going on? The surgery went fine, and there's nothing, like she didn't have any infection, nothing was making sense. And so we realized that it was because she wasn't catheterizing herself, because she didn't realize she had to. And so I realized at that point that as a surgeon, I can be technically perfect, but if I don't do a good job explaining to my patient what to expect or what could happen after surgery, then I failed.
Mhm.
And so that's kind of where I started. And I started being on social media as a fellow, because that's when you start having a little bit of time. I started on Twitter, and it was a really good place to network with other urologists and kind of
Mhm.
learn and also get to know people around the country. And from there, I started an Instagram page, and I realized, I was doing that, and I realized like you would make a post and then no one would see it later, right? Like it would go
Yep.
away. And so it's like I do all this work to educate somebody in one post and it would disappear. And
Mhm.
so then I was like, okay, let me try YouTube. Like I like talking. I don't like taking pictures, but I like
Mhm.
talking, and I like being in front. I wasn't really sure I was good at being in front of camera, but I knew I could talk.
Mhm.
So I decided, well, let me just try it for 6 months. Let me use my phone and a window, right? Like very basic,
Yeah.
and didn't have to buy anything besides a tripod. And like, let me just try this and see how it goes. And so I made a commitment to myself. I was going to make one video a week for one video a week for 6 months.
Mhm.
And I was going to just see how it went and like kind of if it was worth my time. And 3 years later, here I am.
I love it. And I love how you said 6 months, because like normally on fresh channels, that's how long it takes to kind of see some sort of traction, some sort of momentum. So you set the time frame right, and I love how
Yeah.
you were committed to it. Yeah. A lot of people, they'll just post like maybe like handful of videos. Within like the first month, they don't see any video, like any views, and then they just end up quitting. So hats down
Yeah.
to you for that. And I like how you said how you would go and you would put all this effort into like Instagram or Twitter, and sure, like it'll be seen initially, but then like over the long run, like it's just like kind of like a flat line, you know. I like your
Yeah.
way of thinking. Yep. I'm kind of
Yeah.
like a lazy person, so that's why I really like YouTube. You just make
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
once and it's up there forever,
It's
getting
green because it's
views.
searchable, right? I mean, that's the key. Like if you're putting out content about something that people are searching for, then
Mhm.
I think YouTube's a great platform for that.
Yeah. And then what the type of I guess how long did it take for you to really get traction to where your content was really being seen?
Yeah, so I think it took me about 7 months to get that first 1,000 subscribers.
Mhm.
And when you start, that's a huge number. You're like, oh
Oh
my
yeah.
God, like I can't believe that little old me got 1,000 people who actually found me interesting enough to watch my stuff, right?
Mhm.
And so that was kind of the first hit. And then after that, I kind of lost track, but I think it probably took me about a year and a half to get the first 100,000 or so. And then the next between 100,000 and a million, it was a little bit faster growing
Mhm.
because I had kind of gotten my groove after that point.
Mhm. And did you ever have this problem to where like as you're growing, did you ever think of like shoot, like what if my family and friends, what if they come across this content? Did you
Yeah, so
yeah.
definitely, I mean, I think for a long time I felt that way, but I really felt strongly that people needed this content. They needed to have access to this kind of education. And so I just kept going. And to be honest, I kept blinders on and no one really said anything to me. And so I just kept doing it. And then finally, COVID hit. So I didn't see anybody outside my day-to-day colleagues and stuff for a long time. And then I went to my first American Urological Association big meeting of all urologists. And I was nervous. I was like, oh, people are going to be like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? But it was mostly very supportive and very excited colleagues who were like, you're doing such a great service for urology. And so that was
Mhm.
really exciting because you just don't know until you're finally in front of other people who are not in your world and see how
Mhm.
they react to it.
Mhm. Yeah, and just like the different reactions, it's like it's crazy like how many like people like were like um just like been impacted by your videos. Like you've probably seen it before, like I've seen it before my own personal brands as well, and I was kind of same way as well. I was always like super, I like doing things in secret, and I'll showcase the results. So I kind of went through, there was like that I just had to accept it and just kind of like just keep chugging along, you know. So yeah, so I guess that brings me to my next question of like how did as your channel was growing, what ways did it really help accelerate your professional career?
Yeah, so early on, I mean, it was really for me, and it's still for me. It was a hobby, right? I wanted to do it because I wanted to help people, but I didn't have any anticipation that it was going to help my career or help anything, right? I was like, okay, let's just do this, right? But
Mhm.
as it's progressed, I've become really well known in my community, right? In my urology community, because even patients are coming to them saying, hey, do you know Dr. Malik? Like, she makes these great videos on YouTube. Like, have you seen her? And so a lot of people started knowing who I am, what I'm doing. And so from that, I've, gotten recognition both nationally and internationally in the urology community to like come give talks about my work, even as a clinician, but also about social media, right? To be like, how can we harness social media to help our patients and help people really know what we're doing? And because urology is such a small field, and until you have a problem, a urologic problem, which it may be too late, you won't know about us. And so I think it's been really transformative for me in that way, in that like just getting known. And then also now I'm getting tons of patients who come to see me for help, right? They want urology help, and they want someone who they trust, and they see me on their TV screen or on their computer or their phone every week. So they feel comfortable coming to see me.
I love that. And I guess like as far as like career opportunities, is it like speaking, you giving like workshops? Have you thought about like writing a book or
Yeah,
anything like
I've
that
thought
there?
about it. I've thought about it, but I'm not yet. I think someday, certainly, but not yet. I do feel like lots of speaking opportunities to which ultimately helps you get promoted. So in academic centers where you when you work in an academic hospital, the things that they look at for promotion are your recognition. So are you known nationally and internationally? And then are you going out and giving talks? And so I give talks all the time. And so that's really a great opportunity for me to, one, show my stuff, but also network with lots of people around the world. I've met urologists who are doing really cool things. I've met, sex therapists. I've met other educators like myself who are doing interesting things. So even beyond the just urology side of it, I've made tons of really interesting friends who are doing similar entrepreneurial type things. I started an organization called South Asian Wellness, which is based on like all these Instagram friends I made to like educate South Asians on their health. And then I've also been part of other organizations which are doing similar things. And I made some really great friends through it who, we'll partner and do things together. And it's just great to be in that environment of people who are thinking outside the box.
That's the one thing I love about social media, like sure you have your reach as far as like your general audience, but like the connections you make through it. I think some of all of my best friends, they came through, like we connected on social media and just like, and just like meeting in person and just like, and it's not like one of those relationships where it's like hey, like an acquaintance, but well, like we're actually like good friends, like I know like hey, how's your wife doing, or how's this going along, how's the kids. I'm not at that stage yet. I'm 21. But you get what I'm saying. Just by using the I guess like your personal brand essentially to go out there and just make connections with like people, not only your industry but also industries that kind of like connect,
it's
not connect,
really
complement
cool.
what you do.
It's really cool. I mean, I love having these friends who have these really interesting hobbies or jobs, or they've really taken something and just made it transformative for their audience. And that's just like really amazing to be around a group of people who look for how they can impact the world in a positive way that's outside the normal 9 to 5, which is great. I love my job, but I think that it's really interesting to find people who are just pushing the boundaries.
Here go my favorite question right here. So, because my channel got demonetized on YouTube. So, like, when as you were growing and making new videos, even with some of your older videos, because I know for me, like, I posted videos before in the past, and they were good with the YouTube algorithm, like not algorithm, but like their guidelines. But as time went on and it got stricter, those videos eventually got demonetized. Did you have like any like issues as far as like demonetization, age restrictions, anything like that?
Yeah, sometimes you have to, because it's sexual health content and it can be perceived as, not following guidelines. There is kind of a lot of like second review of the content. So like first review won't be necessarily a good green, and then there'll be a second review to make sure that it's okay, right? Because they have to make sure that now, like they know I'm a physician, I have authority, I'm not like someone trying to sell something or someone
Mhm.
trying to you know, talk about pornographic things or whatever,
Yeah.
right? So I think now it's more of like, okay, they see there's authority. I'm a known creator. And then on top of it, like as long there's certain things you can't do. Like I can't show pictures of human body parts. So patients was like, oh, can you, I mean, the people on the comments are, I was like, oh, what does that look like? And I'm like, I can't put a picture of it. Like you can Google it, but I can't put a picture
Yeah.
of it. Because that's just not, even though I'm a physician and have authority, like there's certain things you can't do. And so that
Yeah.
does limit the education a little bit, because it's like, I can't show them the picture of what I want to show them. Right.
Mhm.
But ultimately, yeah, I think it was a learning process, like really learning what like where are the limits, right? Like what can I talk about, what can I not talk about,
Mhm.
and how can I make it so that it is educational, completely, like there's no bias in what I'm presenting, it's factual, but not making it so that it's perceived as something that's not kosher for the YouTube algorithm.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And man, like as far as like the YouTube partner program,
Mm-hmm.
if you're if you get like that yellow dollar sign,
Yeah.
it could
Yeah.
be like just hell going through that process. But like once you have that all figured out and like it's like it's so nice as far as like just like as far as like having YouTube as another stream of income. So that's good that you figured that out. Another good question I had for you is like how much fact checking goes into each of your videos? Because like you have a pretty big audience, and let's say if you're to say something, and like we all make mistakes. I make mistakes. You probably make
Mhm.
mistakes occasionally.
Yeah.
What happens if you say something that wasn't correct? What are like the consequences for that?
Yeah, so typically, I mean, generally, like medicine as it stands is always evolving, right? Because there's new data, there may be new treatments, and so it can become outdated. And usually, if there's something that's gotten really outdated, I'll either delete that video and make a new one, or of course, if it's something that's like dangerous and we no longer do it, like we found out it's
Yeah.
not effective. But generally speaking, it's like, oh, there's a new technology, and that old technology is still fine, and people are still doing it, but there's like a new technology. And generally, before I make a video, I spend a lot of time, like reading up on the literature, making sure I have the most up-to-date research. I re-review, our guidelines that are updated all the time through the American Urological Association. So I make sure that I'm really providing the most up-to-date content on the day that I'm making the video, right? It
Mhm.
could be 2 years down the line that we have some transformative thing that comes up in research, and we start doing that. And then, I'll go back and I'll modify what I've done. And some things, like I'm not really an expert on metastatic prostate cancer, for example. And so I may like bring on another person to come give that credibility, rather than, because it's also changing so frequently, that I may say, hey, let me bring someone who's really up to date in the literature to talk about it, because
Mhm.
I may not be completely up to date on that. And like it changes so quickly that I may, even if I do the research myself, I don't want to misspeak. And so certain
Mhm.
things are pretty complex, and I'll get some help with those. But otherwise, most of the stuff, because of my training and being a urologist, I read up on everything, make sure it's completely factually accurate. I put the links in the description of every paper that I read to make the video, so anyone can fact check me and make sure that it's correct, or that they can read the paper that I'm talking about, so they can feel that, make their own conclusions if they like.
Mhm. Great answer, and I love how didn't realize how much like researching goes, but how just like not only like double checking, but like triple checking everything is correct. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. As far as like specifically on when it comes to like things like such as like I guess like the body and health, you really got to check those things there. So yeah, I was just curious as far as like what was your process behind that, and just really going in like checking your information because you got a pretty big audience. Last thing
Yeah.
you want is like
Yeah.
you get a few phone calls a couple hours
Yeah,
later,
I think the hardest part is, people do a lot of alternative therapies, right? And there's very little data on those things. And that's not to say that they may be helpful for some people, right? Like there's a theory why certain supplements may work for some people for certain
Mhm.
things, but there's no evidence behind it. But I still want people to know what literature we have. And so I'll make content on it so they know, right? Like this is what data we have. This is how effective we know. This is why I think maybe it might work, maybe it might not work. And what are the risks? Because I think that's the biggest thing. People think if they can get it over the counter, there's no risk, but there's risk with lots of things you can get over the counter.
Mhm.
I mean, even
Yeah.
Tylenol, if you take too much, you can hurt yourself, right? So
Oh
you got
yeah.
to be careful.
Yeah. Especially we taking like other like solutions as well. Yep. It's just
Yeah.
um not compound cause and effect. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
So with that, have you had like any success stories? So what I mean by that is like, so like for me when I was making content, there was a point like when you're getting like millions of views a month, it was just numbers. Like for me,
Mhm.
like 1,000 subscribers, that was my dream. But like
Yeah.
getting going beyond that, like it was like, okay, it's just numbers game now. And then I started like YouTube became more enjoyable for me after I realized that like, hey, this content, it's helping people like
Oh,
going through
yeah.
like depression or whatever. Do you have like any stories like that of like just
Oh
like
my God.
stories from your
Yeah.
like audience that like keeps you going every day?
So many. I mean, literally every day I get a comment like, thank you so much. You're changing my life. I get messages all the time in my DMs, and I don't respond to them all because there's just too many, but
Yeah.
like I read them, and it's amazing. And people are really like, they're like, this is the best information I've ever gotten about this problem that I'm having. I'm inspired to go see a urologist, or I feel so much more comfortable talking about this with my doctor or my partner, whatever the case may be.
Mhm.
So I get it all the time. And that's really why I keep doing it, because I'm like, I feel like I'm changing lives, right? I'm making a huge difference.
Mhm.
And that's me, one person. Whereas if I saw a clinic full of patients, I can see like maybe 40 patients a day at most. And that's it, right? But now I can reach millions
Mhm.
every week. I can reach millions of
Yeah.
people. So it's really exciting. And I think as far as the numbers, I mean, I never dreamed in a million years that I would have 1 million subscribers. I never thought I'd be a YouTuber. Like I I'm a doctor, right? I
Yeah.
didn't think that like this little fun project I made on the side would become like an animal of itself. And
Yeah.
it keeps me going. Like I'm always excited to come up with an answer for something that someone asks me on my comments, or something that, a lot of times there's like these questions that people want answers to. Like, for example, one of my highest performing videos is like, how do you make your semen volume more voluminous? And like that medically
Mhm.
doesn't matter,
Yeah.
right? Like it doesn't matter to me if you make more or less, unless you're having infertility.
Mhm.
And but like people want answers to this, right? So
Mhm.
I like, it pushes me to be like, look, people really want to know, and let them get that information from a verified source, someone who actually can tell them medically what's going on, why it's happening, and what you can really do, rather than somebody who's like, here, take this pill and I'm gonna make some profit off of you.
Mhm. And it's just like those, especially when they send like a big paragraph,
Yeah.
like their whole
Yeah.
situation and like how they came across your content and then how their life was improved.
Yeah.
That's what it like, I don't know, like you go to bed at night like knowing that like I'm here on this earth for a reason, like I'm here to
Yeah.
make an impact, it's a
Yeah.
really nice feeling. So yeah, I
Yeah.
like
It
that.
really is. You're giving me chills.
Yeah.
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 So do you have like any exciting plans for the future as far as like your personal brand and also your professional career? What does that look like?
Well, I think that as profession as a as YouTuber, I'm going to keep making content, and there can be, I think if anyone is a creator right now, just know there are ups and downs, right? There's days where you'll do videos that make, that blow out the water, and there'll be ones that don't do as well. And I think you just keep going, and that's certainly my intention, to keep going, keep growing, keep kind of pushing that, and see how I can educate best. So I am going to try to make more short form content, and see if I can, reach a different audience that way. So that's kind of right now, my short-term goal is to kind of play around with different types of content, different ways to educate, and see what really resonates with my audience.
Mhm. That's interesting that you mentioned YouTube Shorts, because I was speaking to someone, they were talking about how YouTube Shorts, it's like a separate algorithm from the
Mhm.
long form videos, and how it completely shows your videos like a completely different audience, So that's a
Mhm.
pretty good strategy as far as like just like broadening things out and just like reaching more people. Specifically, like I remember how you were saying once people like come to you, or any other urologist, it's kind of too late. Did you
Sometimes,
say
yeah.
that? Yeah,
Yeah, it
yeah,
can
yeah,
be. It depends on,
yeah.
it depends on what's going on with them. But right, like if, for example, they have blood in the urine and they're like, oh, it's no big deal, and they wait too long, that could be a serious problem, right?
Mhm,
So like one of my videos is like, what does the color of your urine mean? And so in there, if somebody watches that video and sees that, oh, I need to go see a urologist, is serious, then
mhm,
hopefully they'll go. And I've seen that where they've waited too long, right?
mhm,
And other things, right? Like it can be quality of life things too, but like if they get them taken care of earlier, that can potentially be better for them in the long term rather than waiting for it to get so bad that, like, for example, someone's in diapers or someone's, doing something else, like learning. And some of my videos are just learning like normal behaviors that you should and shouldn't be doing that might be damaging your bladder in the long term, right? Like things
mhm.
like that, that I think are super important and can really help.
Just comes down to that education, and yeah, just as far as like reaching that broad audience, I think the short strategy, that's really going to work for you, especially since you're already like established, you got a big audience. You
Yeah.
can yeah, you can take that route to really um just like like reaching different ages, genders, and also people across different countries. So yeah, I'm excited for you.
Thank you.
Two more questions for you, and then we'll wrap it up. So if you can do everything all over again, what would you do differently?
I think I would have hired an editor earlier. I think and a lot of YouTubers say this, but I edited my own videos for so long and I am not like, I have no skills. I learned for YouTube. So
Mhm.
I learned YouTube editing like by myself and it was super basic and I'd get excited, learn something new. I'm like, oh, let me add this to my video. But
Yeah.
it took hours and I don't have hours to do that. Like I've
Mhm.
got two kids, I've got a full-time job. And so because I wasn't sure if it was going to be like a real thing. So I didn't want to invest the time into like finding someone, teaching them how to like edit my content. And, I was like, okay, let me just see if I'm going to keep going. And then ultimately I
Mhm.
finally did hire someone. So I think that would be one thing I would change. And otherwise I'm really happy with however, you don't know when you're starting. Like I think, yeah, I could have like taken a creator's course early and maybe had a better search strategy early on or like,
Mhm.
but I think nothing can replace learning from your audience. So like
Mhm.
when it's 100 subscribers, there's still going to be people commenting and telling you what they want to see or, whatever. So I think always asking your audience for feedback and looking for what they want and just trying new things. And I think I did that. And I think it really helped.
I love that, and one thing I saw somewhere is like the key to a long life is contrast, and and just like from being like where you at with like 100 subscribers and just like trying things like some failed, some succeed, and just going up the little
Yeah.
like up that little like ladder to like where you're at right now. That's like, and looking back at it, like
Yeah,
it's
and you
it's
can't take it
fulfilling.
personally, right? Like if something failed, it's not because you didn't do a good job. It's just that didn't resonate. And that's okay. Like
Hmm.
not everything you do is going to be a home run and you can't take it personally.
Yep. I wish I had learned that earlier, but I'm still 20. Guess you could say I got
It's
some
hard. It's
time.
not
Yeah.
it's easy to say. It still hurts, but you just got to be like, okay, it's okay. Keep going. Like
Yeah.
keep the hustle, keep grinding.
So outside of work and YouTube, if you could do one thing for the rest of your life every day, what would that be?
Like for work or just in general?
Outside of work, outside of YouTube, just like something that makes you happy.
Oh, I mean, honestly, it's literally having quality time with the family. Like I can't even the 10 minutes a day I get to talk to have like a alone time with my husband and
Mhm.
like cuddling my kids and watching movies with them or playing on the floor with them. Like there's nothing better than that. So I think just spending that quality time with the people you love and always making sure you have time for them, no matter how busy it gets, like those years are not going to come back. So
Mhm.
you just got to always prioritize that. And I think first and foremost, that would be like family is number one.
Mhm. I love that. And when it comes like a lot of things, quality is important, but when it comes to like family, quantity as far as like how much time you spend with them, that's really important, even if you're not really like saying anything, just being
Yeah.
with them,
Just
being
being
in
with
their
them, just
presence. Yeah.
being around them. It's important.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. But hey, Rena, thank you for like hopping on Finding Your Purpose podcast. And for the people watching, listening to this, I'll have all your links down below in the description. This is a YouTube podcast, so I'm going to be posting it on there. But yeah, thanks for like being a guest on my podcast. And yeah, that's going to be it for this podcast episode. Thank you everyone for watching or listening, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. See ya.
Thank you.